Welcome, this is Carrie Schell from On Point Quilter. If you have ever purchased a pattern or found a pattern in a book or in a magazine, this video will help you figure out how to translate from the pattern instructions to Electric Quilt 8. On the home screen, select Design a Block from Scratch. Select a new block, Pieced Polydraw Block. This is going to allow us to draw individual patches, which is going to help in decomposing the pattern. Set the block width and height to the final width and height without seam allowances. For the flower block, this will be 9 by 6. Under the drawing tools, make sure that you have the rectangle grid selected. And then we're going to set the snap points to snap every 1/4 inch. So I'll multiply the width and the height both by 4 and change the horizontal to 36 and the vertical to 24. And that's all we need to do for setup. In the blog post, I talk about 3 different rules when wanting to figure out the finished size of a patch. So if you're looking at a pattern and you have squares, rectangles, and also folded corner pieces, you subtract a 1/2 inch from the length and height. If a pattern has you turning a square into 2 triangles, then you're going to want to subtract 7/8 of an inch from the cut size of the initial square. If your square is either X cut or cut twice on the diagonal for 4 triangles, you're going to want to subtract 1 1/4 inch from the initial square. Here is the cutting chart for the block we're going to decompose using EQ8. Sometimes we need to look beyond the initial cutting instructions to understand the construction technique. For example, the center and the B1 fabric will actually make flying geese units. Essentially, the A fabric ends up being X cut just after we're through doing some sewing, and the B1 unit ends up being cut once on the diagonal. So we will use Rule 3 for the A fabric, and that means we will take 5 3/4, subtract 1 1/4, and our outside edge will then be 4 1/2 inches. For B1, we're going to use rule number 2, so we'll start with the 3 1/8 inch cut square, subtract 7/8, which means we will design at 2 1/4. Now let's draft the flying geese units. Select the polyline tool and double-click on the initial node, go over 2 1/4 inches and do a single click, and then go to the left edge at 2 1/4 inches and do a single click and double click to finish. This is our first half square triangle unit. Then with the pick tool, select clone, flip left to right, drag the crosshairs to position so the 2 meet at the top. Note that the distance between the lower corners of the 2 half square triangles is 4 1/2 inches, which is the size that we need for the 1/4 square triangle patch. So double click to start, go over to the right and single click, go to the top, single click, and go back to the beginning and double click for the final patch. With the pick tool, drag a box to select all 3 of the patches and move them so they are centered at the top of the block. Note that the point for the 1/4 square triangle is at 4 1/2 inches. In reading through the block construction instructions, we are instructed to add C1 as a folded corner on the left and right sides of the flying geese unit. Since that is a folded corner, we're going to use rule number 1 and take the cut size of 2 3/4, subtract a 1/2 inch, which means our pieced size is going to be 2 1/4. Since we already have drafted a 2 1/4 inch half square triangle, with the pick tool, we can select one of them, select a clone, flip top to bottom, and move to the left edge. Then select Clone, flip left to right, and move to the lower right edge. Let's select the Color tab and color what we've done so far. Your initial coloring will extend over the folded corners. However, if you do a refresh screen, the layering will be adjusted. Select Add to Project Sketchbook. Per the pattern instructions, we're going to add C2 to the bottom of the previous units. In the cutting instructions, C2 is 5 by 4 1/4. Since this is a rectangle, it will follow Rule 1. We will need to subtract a 1/2 inch from the width and height. 5 minus a 1/2 inch is 4 1/2, and 4 1/4 minus a 1/2 inch is 3 3/4. B2 will be added to the left and right side and is also a rectangle, so we will follow the same rule and subtract a 1/2 inch. So 2 3/4 minus a 1/2 inch would be 2 1/4, and 6 1/2 inches minus a 1/2 inch would be 6 inches. In EQ, select the Draw tab and select the polyline, and we're going to draw C2 starting in the upper left corner. Double-click at 0, 0, go over to 4 1/2, go down to 3 3/4, go over to the left edge and back to the 0, 0 to finish. Drag the crosshairs in the center and it should fit perfectly under the previous patches. Select the Polyline tool, and for B2, again, we'll start in the upper left corner, double-click to start, go over to 2 1/4, go down to 6 inches, go to the left corner, lower left corner, and then go to 0, 0 to finish. We have 2 of these, so we can clone and then just move the other piece to the right. Select the Color tab and color this, and add to Project Sketchbook. Per the instructions, the leaf fabric will be added as folded corners on the left and the right sides. The cut size is 5 inches, and because it's a folded corner, we'll subtract a 1/2 inch, and so the design size will be 4 1/2 inches square. The instructions also tell us that we will add B3 as a folded corner on the previous D1 units. From the cutting instructions, they suggested cutting that at 2 3/4. We will follow Rule 1, subtract a 1/2 inch, and it means we will design those at 2 1/4. Select the Draw tab, and with the Polyline tool, start in the upper left corner and draw a 4 1/2 inch folded corner. Note that the corner points match 4 1/2 inches at the top and 4 1/2 inches on the left. Select it with the Pick tool and select Flip Top to Bottom and drag to the lower left corner. Select Clone, flip left to right, and drag to the lower right corner. For the final folded corners, use the Polyline tool, start in the upper left corner, double-click, go over to 2 1/4, go down to 2 1/4 on the left, and go to 0, 0 to finish, and double-click on that. Then flip that top to bottom and move to the lower left corner. Then clone, flip left to right, and move to the lower right corner. Select the Color tab and color the first folded corners, do a refresh screen, and color the last 2 folded corners. Then add to Project Sketchbook. As we finish up, I wanted to offer just one other comment. If the pattern cutting instructions call for specialty rulers, you are going to want to make sure that you adjust based on the specialty ruler used and understanding the difference between cut sizes and finish sizes. Often that information is on the pattern designer's website or included in the pattern. Thanks so much for watching. For additional tips and techniques, please subscribe to my newsletter at onpointquilter.com.